There was a time when streets echoed with the sounds of children playing. Sidewalks were covered in chalk drawings, vacant lots became battlegrounds for epic games, and the only screen kids stared at was the screen door they hoped to escape through to join their friends outside. These games required no batteries, no downloads, no parental supervision, just imagination, energy, and willing participants. For generations, children passed down games through oral tradition, learning rules on playgrounds from older kids who learned from even older kids before them. These games taught cooperation, competition, physical coordination, and social skills. They filled summer evenings and recess periods. They created memories that lasted lifetimes. But something changed. Smartphones arrived. Video games became immersive. Streets that once teemed with children fell silent. The chain of transmission broke, and games that entertained children for centuries are fading from memory. This is 31 children's games nobody plays anymore, games that defined childhood for generations but have largely disappeared. Some are physically demanding, others are cleverly strategic. All are worth remembering. Number 1. Kick the Cans. Kick the Can was the ultimate neighborhood game, combining elements of hide-and-seek with tag and requiring nothing more than an empty tin can and space to run. One player guarded the can placed in an open area while all others scattered to hide throughout the neighborhood. Hidden players tried to sneak back and kick the can before being spotted and tagged, which would free all previously captured players from the designated jail area. The guard faced an impossible task, watching for sneaking players while also protecting the can from being kicked. The game could last for hours as the dynamic constantly shifted between hiders and the guard. It required stealth, speed, strategic thinking, and teamwork among the hiding players. Kids played until darkness fell completely or parents called them home for dinner. The metallic clang of a successfully kicked can was a triumphant sound that echoed through neighborhoods for generations, signaling freedom for captured teammates and forcing the guard to start the capture process all over again from the beginning. Kick the Can disappeared as neighborhoods fundamentally changed over the decades. Increased traffic made street play genuinely dangerous for running children. Smaller yards and fenced properties eliminated the hiding spots that made the game exciting. Parents grew increasingly uncomfortable with children roaming, unsupervised across multiple properties and through neighbors' yards. The game that once defined summer evenings for millions of American children is now largely unknown to kids raised on video games, smartphones, and organized sports leagues with adult supervision. Number 2. Red Rover. Red Rover was a playground staple that would absolutely horrify modern safety-conscious parents and school administrators. Two teams formed lines by holding hands tightly, facing each other across a grassy field or playground. One team would call out enthusiastically, Red Rover, send name right over." The named player would then run at full speed directly at the opposing line, trying to break through the chain of tightly linked hands using momentum and force. If successful in breaking through, the runner chose any player from that team to bring back to their own side. If stopped by the human chain and unable to break through, they joined the opposing team instead. The game continued with alternating calls until one team absorbed nearly everyone. It was chaotic, intensely physical, and occasionally resulted in bruised arms, rope burns on hands, or knocked down children who got trampled, which is exactly why modern schools have banned it from playgrounds entirely. Red Rover taught kids important lessons about physical limits, teamwork, and resilience in the face of failure. Getting stopped by a chain of hands didn't mean permanent failure. You just joined another team and kept playing enthusiastically. The game has been systematically eliminated from most schools due to legitimate injury concerns, and few children today have ever experienced the genuine thrill of charging full speed at a line of determined classmates bracing for impact. An entire generation has missed this formative physical experience. Number 3. Mother May. Mother May I was a game of permission, strategy, and creativity that required absolutely no equipment whatsoever. One player, designated as Mother, stood at a significant distance while all others lined up together at a starting point. Players took turns asking politely, "Mother, may I take number and type of steps?" Mother responded with yes, no, or sometimes a creative modification of the original request that players had to follow precisely. The types of steps became increasingly creative and elaborate as games progressed. Giant steps, baby steps, scissor steps, bunny hops, crab walks, frog leaps, ballerina twirls, backward steps, and whatever else children could imagine. Forgetting to say "Mother, may I" before moving meant returning to the starting line. The first player to reach Mother won the round and became the new mother for the next game. The game taught children about asking permission properly, following rules precisely, and creative problem-solving within established constraints. Mother May I disappeared along with other simple playground games as recess time shortened dramatically, and structured activities increasingly replaced free unstructured play. Children today rarely experience the patient strategy of requesting the perfect combination of steps to advance quickly or the creativity of inventing entirely new step types to propose. The game that once taught generations of children about patience, permission, and creativity is now largely forgotten in modern playgrounds. Number 4. Red light, green light. Red light, green light transformed children into cars responding to traffic signals in an exciting chase format. One player stood at a distance with their back turned, calling out green light, which allowed all others to advance toward them as quickly as possible. When they suddenly shouted red light and spun around quickly, everyone had to freeze instantly in whatever position they found themselves. Any player caught still moving even slightly had to return to the starting line. The tension of trying to freeze mid-stride while running at full speed, the strategy of knowing when to run fast and when to creep slowly, the thrill of almost reaching the collar before getting caught. These experiences defined countless recess periods for generations of children. The game required no equipment whatsoever, could accommodate any number of players from small groups to entire classes, and could be played anywhere with enough space to run a reasonable distance. While red light, green light isn't completely extinct in modern times, it's far less common than it once was during previous generations. Shortened recess times at schools significantly reduced outdoor play at home, and the steady displacement of unstructured games by organized adult-led activities have all diminished its prevalence significantly. Many children today have only experienced the game through its recent appearance in popular media, rather than actually playing it themselves on playgrounds. Number 5. Hopscotch. Hopscotch dates back literally thousands of years, with variations found across virtually every culture on Earth throughout recorded history. Players drew numbered squares on pavement with chalk, tossed a small marker like a stone onto a specific square, then hopped through the entire course on one foot while carefully skipping the square containing their marker. The game required balance, coordination, accurate throwing, and the ability to draw reasonably straight lines with sidewalk chalk. Sidewalks and playgrounds once bore hopscotch grids drawn by generations of children. Each grid used repeatedly until rain washed it away, and new ones were enthusiastically drawn in their place. The game was simple enough for very young children just learning to hop, yet challenging enough to engage older kids attempting difficult long-distance throws or maintaining one-footed balancing acts on distant squares near the end of elaborate courses. Hopscotch hasn't completely vanished from modern childhood, but it's far less prevalent than it once was during previous generations. Permanent hopscotch grids painted on playground surfaces by schools and parks departments sit largely unused during recess periods. Children who might once have spent hours perfecting their throwing technique and hopping skills now spend that equivalent time on electronic devices instead. A game that survived literally millennia across diverse human cultures is fading within a single generation. Number 6. Marbles. Marbles was once so enormously popular that it developed its own specialized vocabulary, complex rules, and distinct culture among children. Players shot glass or clay marbles at targets using thumb-flicking techniques, attempting to knock opponents' marbles out of a drawn ring or into designated holes in the ground. Keepsies meant winners permanently kept the marbles they won during play, a high-stakes version that led to prized personal collections and occasional bitter tears. Marbles required fine motor skills, intuitive understanding of physics and angles, and strategic thinking about shot selection. Serious, dedicated players knew the important differences between shooters and targets, developed signature shooting techniques practiced for hours, and protected valuable rare marbles like genuine treasures. Marble championships attracted enthusiastic participants and spectators, and marble trading became a playground economy with its own fluctuating values and negotiation customs. The game declined as manufacturing practices changed and quality glass marbles became less commonly available in stores. Video games offered more immediate gratification than the weeks and months required to develop genuine marble shooting expertise. The culture of marbles, the trading, the specialized vocabulary, the refined techniques, required experienced players to actively pass it down to younger children, and as fewer kids played regularly, that essential chain of transmission broke completely. Number 7. Jacks. Jacks required only a small rubber ball and a set of metal or plastic jacks, small star-shaped playing pieces that scattered randomly on the ground when dropped. Players bounced the ball once, quickly scooped up jacks while it was still airborne, then caught the ball before it bounced a second time on the ground. The game progressed systematically from picking up one jack at a time to increasingly difficult numbers requiring greater speed and dexterity. Girls especially embraced jacks enthusiastically, playing for hours on porches, sidewalks, and smooth kitchen floors. Expert players developed genuinely impressive speed and dexterity through practice, scooping multiple jacks in single fluid motions that seemed almost magical to beginners. The game was highly portable, very inexpensive, and could be played alone for practice or competitively against friends. Mastery came through repetition and dedication over time. Jacks faded as the surfaces children commonly played on changed significantly over the decades. Carpet replaced smooth hardwood floors in most homes. Wooden porches suitable for playing gave way to other materials. The game required hard, flat, smooth surfaces that became increasingly less common in children's everyday environments. Jack sets are still manufactured and sold today, but few children know how to play properly, and fewer still have mastered the traditional progression from onesies through tensies. Number 8. Capture the Flags. Capture the Flag transformed any large outdoor space into an exciting battlefield, requiring both athletic ability and strategic thinking. Two teams defended their own flags placed in home territory while simultaneously attempting to infiltrate enemy territory and steal the opponent's flag, then return it safely to home base. Captured players who entered enemy territory went to a designated jail area until freed by daring teammates who managed to reach them. Games could last anywhere from a few intense minutes to several hours depending on strategy and skill levels. The game taught valuable lessons about territory control, teamwork and coordination, strategic thinking and planning, and pure athletic ability. It required nothing but 2 flags or any suitable markers and enough outdoor space to create meaningful separate territories. Variations evolved in different regions across the country, with local rules about jail locations, boundary definitions, capture mechanics, and freeing procedures adding complexity and regional flavor to the basic game structure. Capture the Flag requires large groups of children with access to substantial outdoor space and extended uninterrupted time for play, conditions that are increasingly rare in modern childhood. The game survives primarily in summer camps and occasional organized events, but rarely occurs spontaneously among neighborhood children as it once did regularly when kids had both the physical space and personal freedom to play for hours without adult supervision or scheduled activities. Number 9. Sardines. Sardines cleverly inverted hide-and-seek's familiar formula with delightful and often hilarious results. Instead of one seeker and many hiders, one player hid alone while everyone else actively sought them throughout the playing area. When a seeker successfully found the hider, they didn't announce the discovery. Instead, they quietly joined them in the hiding spot without alerting others. The game continued until all players were crammed together like sardines packed tightly in a can, desperately trying not to giggle and reveal their location. The game created genuine intimacy and camaraderie as players squeezed into closets, under beds, or behind furniture together in increasingly ridiculous configurations. The tension built steadily as hiding spots grew increasingly crowded and players struggled mightily to remain completely silent despite the absurdity. The last seeker to finally find the group became the next hider, motivated not to repeat their slow searching performance. Sardines requires indoor spaces with multiple viable hiding spots and enough players to make the cramped hiding genuinely amusing rather than just uncomfortable. As structured play dates became more common and children spent less unstructured time in informal groups large enough for the game to work properly, sardines faded from common childhood experience. The game that once led to fits of barely suppressed giggles is rarely played by children today. Number 10. Cops and Robbers. Cops and Robbers was an imaginative roleplay structured loosely as an ongoing game with flexible rules. Children divided themselves into law enforcement officers and criminals, with cops attempting to capture robbers through chasing and tagging, while robbers attempted to evade capture through speed, stealth, and clever hiding. Designated jails held captured robbers until freed by uncaptured teammates making daring rescue attempts that risked their own freedom. The game required nothing but imagination and outdoor space to play effectively. Children developed elaborate scenarios, secret hideouts, and complex strategies. It taught valuable perspective-taking skills as players inhabited different roles and navigated the game's simple but engaging dynamics across neighborhood territory. Games could evolve into complex, ongoing narratives spanning multiple play sessions. Cops and Robbers declined for multiple interconnected reasons. Concerns about children playing with imaginary weapons made parents and schools increasingly uncomfortable. Reduced outdoor play severely limited opportunities for extended neighborhood games. The game's basic premise also became more complicated by changing cultural attitudes about law enforcement that previous generations never had to consider during innocent childhood play. Number 11. Foursquare. Foursquare turned a simple rubber ball and a painted grid into an intensely addictive competition that could dominate entire recess periods. 4 players occupied squares ranked from highest to lowest status, with the king occupying the top square and controlling the game. The top-ranked player served by bouncing the ball into another square, and players hit the ball into each other's squares attempting to eliminate opponents through errors. Eliminated players rotated out to the waiting line, while eager waiting players rotated into the lowest square. The game developed elaborate local variations with special rules, unique serving techniques and signature moves with creative names like Cherry Bomb, Poison, or Around the World. Skilled players dominated their squares for entire recess periods, becoming playground celebrities. The social dynamics challenging the king's authority, negotiating disputed rules, handling controversial elimination calls taught as much about social navigation as the physical game itself taught about coordination. Foursquare hasn't completely disappeared from modern playgrounds, but it's far less dominant than it once was during its peak popularity. Pre-painted squares installed by schools sit unused on many playgrounds as children find other activities during increasingly shortened recess periods. A game that once taught entire generations about competition, social hierarchy, and dispute resolution now sees only sporadic play at best. Number 12, Freeze Tag. Freeze Tag added a dramatic cooperative element to basic tag that transformed the simple chasing game. When tagged by the person who was it, players froze completely in position rather than being eliminated, remaining statue, still until freed by an unfrozen teammate's touch. The game created ongoing tension as frozen players watched helplessly while taggers approached potential rescuers and brave rescuers risked their own freedom to save stranded teammates. The game rewarded both raw speed and careful strategy equally. Fast players could rescue multiple frozen teammates in quick succession, dramatically shifting the game's momentum. Strategic taggers could deliberately freeze players near each other, making any rescue attempt extremely risky for would-be heroes. The game constantly ebbed and flowed as the balance shifted between the growing number of frozen players and the shrinking pool of free players still running. Freeze tag is simpler than many other games on this list, and therefore more likely to survive into modern times. But even this basic, beloved variation of tag sees significantly less play than it once did during previous generations. As outdoor play decreases overall and recess periods shorten at schools, games that require significant running space and multiple willing players become increasingly less common in children's daily lives. Number 13, Duck Duck Goose. Duck Duck Goose was often the very first organized game young children ever learned to play together. Players sat in a circle on the ground while one child walked slowly around the outside, gently tapping each seated player's head while saying duck repeatedly until suddenly choosing someone as goose. The designated goose leaped up immediately and chased the tapper around the full circle, trying desperately to tag them before they could claim the goose's now empty spot. The game was perfect for very young children, simple, easily understood rules, physical activity appropriate for developing bodies, low stakes that prevented emotional meltdowns, and the mounting excitement of wondering who would be chosen as the goose next. It required no equipment whatsoever, accommodated any reasonable group size from small to large, and could be played equally well in classrooms, gymnasiums, or outdoor spaces. Duck Duck Goose remains present in many preschools and early elementary settings, but is becoming noticeably less common even in those environments as cultural attitudes about games and physical contact continue evolving. A game that once universally introduced young children to the concept of organized group play is gradually becoming optional rather than a foundational shared experience. Number 14, Ring Around the Rosie. Ring Around the Rosie is genuinely ancient, with documented versions dating back many centuries across multiple cultures. Children joined hands together in a circle, walked or danced around while singing the familiar traditional rhyme everyone knew, then all fell down together simultaneously at the song's end amid giggles and laughter. The game was often a toddler's very first group activity, simple enough for the youngest children to participate successfully. The game taught basic coordination, cooperation with others, and the pure joy of shared physical activity with peers. Its disputed origins, the popular myth connecting it to the bubonic plague, is largely unfounded historically, don't diminish its universal appeal to young children across generations. The falling down was always unquestionably the best part, leading to fits of giggles and immediate enthusiastic demands to play again immediately. Ring Around the Rosie isn't completely extinct, but is far less common in informal spontaneous play than it was for previous generations. Children learn it in structured settings like preschools and organized music classes, but rarely play it spontaneously among themselves. A game that once happened naturally whenever toddlers gathered now typically requires adult initiation to occur. Number 15, London Bridge is Falling Down. London Bridge combined singing, physical movement, and mild suspenseful peril into an engaging game perfect for groups of children. Two players formed an arch with their raised arms while all others passed through continuously in a moving line. When the familiar song ended on its final note, the arch suddenly fell, capturing whoever happened to be passing through at exactly that unlucky moment. The game created mounting anticipation as players tried to time their passage carefully to avoid being the one captured when the song concluded. The song's multiple verses provided structure and dramatic pacing. Captured players chose a side to join, eventually leading to an exciting tug-of-war finale between the two accumulated teams to determine overall winners. London Bridge has faded along with other traditional singing games that required specialized knowledge passed down between children through direct oral tradition. As children spend less time in mixed-age groups where such games were naturally transmitted from older to younger kids, the songs and associated rules are gradually being forgotten by each successive generation. Number 16. Leapfrog. Leapfrog was beautifully simple in concept. Players crouched down low while others vaulted over them, hands placed firmly on backs, legs spread wide to clear the crouching player beneath. Lines of multiple crouching children created extended courses for continuous leaping from one end to the other. The game required only willing participants and enough space for safe leaping. The game developed important physical skills, jumping power, spatial awareness, and trusting others with your safety, while creating shared physical experience and camaraderie among players. Variations included longer lines of crouchers, faster continuous leaping, or competitive racing between parallel lines. The game was genuinely ancient, appearing in artwork from medieval times and almost certainly much older. Leapfrog declined as concerns about physical contact and potential injury liability grew significantly in schools and organized settings. Schools worried about children falling during vaults or colliding with crouching players. Parents became increasingly uncomfortable with the physical intimacy the game necessarily required. A game that once seemed completely natural and innocent became increasingly problematic in a more cautious era. Number 17. Telephone. Telephone demonstrated vividly how communication degrades through successive transmission, teaching valuable lessons through entertainment. Players sat in a line or circle formation. The first player whispered a phrase or sentence to the next player, who whispered what they thought they heard to the next, continuing down the line until the last player announced what they received. The inevitable hilarious distortion between the original phrase and final announced version created reliable entertainment. The game required no equipment and taught important lessons about communication accuracy, careful listening, and the fundamental unreliability of information transmitted through multiple sources. Complex, unfamiliar, or technical phrases distorted most dramatically as players struggled to accurately pass along what they thought they heard from their neighbor. Telephone still appears occasionally in some settings, but is noticeably less common in spontaneous play among children today. The game requires enough players to create meaningful distortion and patience that doesn't come naturally to children accustomed to instant gratification from digital entertainment. Number 18. Simon Says. Simon Says tested listening skills and impulse control in an engaging elimination format. A designated leader gave physical instructions to the group, but players should only follow instructions that were preceded by the phrase "Simon Says." Following any instruction given without the magic phrase meant immediate elimination from the round. The game rewarded careful attention and created tension as the leader tried various tricks to catch players making mistakes. The game required no equipment whatsoever and taught genuinely important developmental skills, listening carefully to precise wording, controlling impulses to act immediately, and following directions exactly as given. Creative leaders developed increasingly tricky techniques, giving rapid-fire instructions or using similar-sounding phrases to confuse players. Simon Says survives in classrooms and organized settings, but rarely occurs in spontaneous play among children today. The game requires a leader willing to manage the rules actively and players willing to accept elimination gracefully. Number 19. Hide and Seek. Hide and Seek is perhaps the most universal children's game in human history, appearing in every documented culture across recorded time. One player counted to a designated number, eyes covered, while all others scattered to hide throughout the available space. The seeker then searched for hidden players. Found players were out of that round, the last one found typically won and became the next seeker. The game taught spatial reasoning, patience while waiting silently, and the unique thrill of concealment while being actively hunted. Finding the perfect hiding spot, one never before used in that location, close enough to hear the seeker approaching but completely hidden from view, was a genuine art form that improved with experience. Hide and Seek hasn't completely disappeared, but has declined significantly from its former prevalence. Children need space with adequate hiding spots and sufficient time for extended games that modern structured life rarely provides. The game that once defined childhood play for countless generations is steadily becoming an occasional activity rather than a daily staple. Number 20. Tag. Tag in its simplest fundamental form, one person is designated it and chases others until tagging someone who becomes the new it may be the most basic and foundational children's game ever invented by humanity. It requires absolutely nothing but willing players and space to run. It appears in every documented culture throughout history. Variations multiplied endlessly across regions and generations. Freeze tag, TV tag where you're safe when naming a show, cartoon tag, shadow tag, and countless creative local inventions. The basic framework accommodated infinite creativity while satisfying fundamental human urges to chase and flee. Even basic tag has notably declined in modern times. Shortened recess periods limit time for running games. Some schools have actually banned tag over safety or bullying concerns. Reduced outdoor play eliminates opportunities. A game so fundamental it seemed eternal is becoming less common in children's lives. Number 21. Jump rope and double dutch. Jump rope games ranged from simple solo jumping to elaborate double dutch with two long ropes turning in opposite directions requiring complex footwork patterns. Traditional rhymes accompanied jumping, passed down through generations of playground culture. Expert jumpers performed impressive tricks, entered and exited spinning ropes flawlessly, and competed in formal and informal competitions. Double dutch especially required truly remarkable coordination and timing to master. Two turners coordinated their opposite spinning, while one or more jumpers navigated the intersecting ropes. The rhythms of the traditional rhymes, the sounds of ropes hitting pavement, and the visual spectacle of skilled jumping defined schoolyard culture for generations of children. Jump rope continues in organized settings and competitions, but spontaneous schoolyard jumping with traditional rhymes has declined dramatically. The rhymes themselves are being forgotten as direct transmission between children's stops. A rich tradition of jumping games and associated rhymes is fading from common experience. Number 22. Hand clapping games. Hand clapping games combined intricate physical patterns with songs, rhymes, and memory challenges. Partners faced each other, clapping their own hands and each other's in increasingly complex coordinated patterns while reciting traditional verses. Games like Miss Mary Mac, A Sailor Went to Sea, and countless regional variations filled playgrounds and slumber parties for generations. The games required no equipment and taught coordination, rhythm, memory, and cooperation between partners. Mastering complex patterns took dedicated practice and genuine partnership. The rhymes ranged from completely nonsensical to surprisingly narrative, passed down with variations that created distinct regional traditions. Hand-clapping games were already declining before smartphones arrived and have largely disappeared from common childhood experience since. The oral tradition that transmitted rhymes and patterns broke as fewer children played regularly. Games that required face-to-face partnership lost ground to solitary digital entertainment options. Number 23. Blind Man's Bluff. Blind Man's Bluff, dating back many centuries and appearing in famous paintings by artists like Goya, required a blindfolded player to catch and identify other players by touch alone. The combination of sensory deprivation and physical pursuit created unique excitement unlike any other game. The game could be rough or gentle depending on players and setting. Being the blind man was simultaneously disorienting and thrilling, spinning to lose all sense of direction, then groping toward sounds and laughter while other players teased and evaded, touching the blind man before darting away. Successfully identifying a caught player by feel alone was the ultimate satisfying victory. Blind Man's Bluff has largely disappeared from modern childhood, likely due to safety concerns about blindfolded children moving quickly and changing attitudes about touching games in general. Number 24. Statues. Statues required one player to spin others around by the arms and release them suddenly. Spun players had to freeze immediately in whatever position they happened to land, maintaining their pose while the spinner examined each resulting statue and chose the best, worst, or most creative for various humorous categories. The game encouraged creativity and physical control simultaneously. Landing in an interesting pose required both luck and genuine skill in body control. Maintaining an awkward position without wobbling or falling tested balance and determination. Judging the statues invited humor and creativity. Categories could be scariest, funniest, saddest, or anything else. Statues disappeared as playground culture changed over the decades. The game required physical contact through spinning and judgment through choosing winners that modern sensibilities increasingly questioned. Number 25. What Time Is It, Mr. Fox? This game cleverly combined red light, green light mechanics with an element of predatory suspense. One player, designated Mr. Fox, stood with back turned to the group. Others asked loudly, "What time is it, Mr. Fox?" and then advanced the number of steps matching whatever time Fox announced. But if Mr. Fox answered midnight instead of a time, he turned and chased everyone back to the starting line. The game created delicious mounting tension. Was the next answer going to be midnight? How close did you dare get before Fox inevitably struck? Children learn to read subtle cues, manage risk appropriately, and make split-second decisions about when to advance aggressively versus hold back cautiously. What time is it, Mr. Fox? Has largely faded from modern playgrounds. It requires open space, multiple players, and knowledge of rules that must be actively taught and learned. As the chain of transmission from older to younger children broke, the game was simply forgotten. Number 26, Spud. Spud combined dodgeball-style throwing with chase elements in a unique format. One player threw a ball high into the air while all others scattered away as fast as possible. The thrower caught the descending ball and immediately yelled Spud, freezing everyone in place. The thrower then took exactly 3 steps toward any chosen player and attempted to hit them with the thrown ball. Hit players earned a letter spelling SPUD, completing the full word meant elimination. The game required strategic thinking, which player to strategically target, how to dodge effectively within frozen constraints, when to throw high versus low. The 3-step approach created genuine tension as targets watched the thrower advance directly toward them. Spud was a direct casualty of dodgeball's general decline in schools due to bullying and injury concerns. The game's core mechanic, throwing balls at people, became increasingly problematic in safety-conscious environments. Number 27, Mumbly Peg. Mumbly Peg was a knife-throwing game played mostly by boys during previous generations. Players threw pocket knives at the ground near their own feet, attempting specific tricks, throwing from different hand positions, flipping the knife various ways in the air. Points were awarded based on difficulty of successfully completed throws. The game seems genuinely shocking by modern standards, children playing completely unsupervised with sharp knives, throwing them at the ground near their own feet. Yet for many generations, Mumbly Peg taught manual dexterity, risk assessment, and the responsible handling of tools. Injuries occurred but were considered an acceptable part of learning. Mumbly Peg disappeared as children stopped routinely carrying pocket knives, and as tolerance for childhood risk declined dramatically across society. Number 28, Stickball. Stickball cleverly adapted baseball for urban streets with absolutely minimal equipment, typically just a broom handle for a bat and a rubber ball. Variations existed across American cities, with local rules carefully adapted to whatever space was available. Home runs might mean hitting past a certain sewer cover or reaching a specific building. The game created distinct neighborhood cultures and produced legendary local players known and celebrated within their blocks. Children organized their own games completely, settled their own disputes without adults, and developed skills that occasionally led to professional baseball careers. Stickball declined as street traffic increased dramatically and organized sports leagues with adult supervision replaced informal neighborhood games. A uniquely urban American tradition has largely disappeared. Number 29, Kick the Wicket. Kick the Wicket was a British variation of Kick the Can, using a wicket, 3 sticks balanced carefully together in a tripod formation, instead of a can. The game followed similar basic rules. One player guarded the wicket while all others hid and attempted to knock down the wicket before being successfully tagged. The wicket added significant challenge because it was considerably harder to knock over than simply kicking a can. The guard had to not only tag approaching hiders, but also quickly rebuild the wicket if it was knocked down, creating extended opportunities for hidden players to run and hide again. Kick the Wicket has largely disappeared along with its American cousin as conditions for extended outdoor play vanished from modern childhood. Number 30, Queenie. Queenie was a British throwing and guessing game combining physical skill with social deception. One player, Queenie, stood with back turned and threw a ball over her shoulder to the group behind. Other players scrambled to catch it, then all quickly stood with hands hidden behind their backs. Queenie turned around and tried to guess who was actually holding the ball. The game combined physical skill in throwing and catching with acting ability in hiding whether you held the ball and deduction in guessing who had it. Players developed poker faces and bluffing skills through repeated play. Queenie has faded from British playgrounds along with many traditional games requiring face-to-face interaction and direct social engagement. Number 31, Conkers. Conkers, played primarily in Britain, involved threading horse chestnuts onto strings and taking turns swinging at opponents' conkers until one finally shattered. Championship conkers, hardened through various secret techniques, were prized possessions. The game had formal rules, established scoring systems, and intense schoolyard tournaments each autumn season. Children collected horse chestnuts each fall during walks, prepared them using closely guarded secret family techniques including baking, soaking in vinegar, or aging for years, and competed for playground glory throughout the autumn season. Conkers has been banned from many British schools over safety and allergy concerns, effectively ending a seasonal tradition that defined autumn playgrounds for countless generations of British children. These 31 games share something profoundly important. They all required children to be physically together in person, using their bodies and imaginations rather than electronic devices. They transmitted culture from older children to younger, creating traditions lasting generations. They taught skills no app can replicate, negotiating rules, settling disputes fairly, taking turns, winning gracefully, and losing gracefully. The decline of these games represents something genuinely real that has been lost from childhood. Children once spent hours in unstructured play, developing social skills, physical coordination, and creativity through games passed down for generations. That time has been displaced by screens, structured activities, and reduced outdoor play. These games could return. They require no expensive equipment, no special facilities, no adult organization. They simply require children together with time and space to play freely. Parents could teach children games their grandparents played. Perhaps these memories will inspire someone to revive them. Which games do you remember? Share your memories in the comments below. These games deserve to be remembered. Thank you for watching.